So I thought better first of all explain why Alan's asked me along. Who is this weird person catapulting, parachuting into your meeting, asking and telling you all about sustainability? I've worked in the sector for over 35 years. My name is Caroline Aistrop and I run a company called Green Spark. But in those 35 years, I've worked for many environmental organisations. I've worked Press and PR officer for the Wildfire and Wetlands Trust. I worked for RSPB. I was chief exec of Stroud Valleys Project, which is a community environmental charity in the district where I live. Did that for 13 years. Also worked for the BBC. I was a reporter on Radio Gloucestershire's Countryside and Rural Affairs programme, which did win a Sony Award for Best Magazine Programme in the UK. And then I've also worked for the BBC's Natural History, producing news programmes for Radio 4 about natural history and the environment. So been around quite a bit, absolutely gobsmacked at the moment, really sort of reeling a bit about the enthusiasm there is for sustainability. If you'd asked me 35 years ago if I thought we'd be at this stage now, I would have not, said don't be ridiculous. 35 years ago, I was thought as being weird, and yes, definitely had to fight to get anybody to sort of even vaguely listen to me. And now I find it really weird that I'm not thought of as weird anymore. So that is my background. I'm a scientist by background, an ecologist, but I've specialised in communications and PR for most of those 35 years, really trying to inspire people and persuade them that being green is the best thing to be. Alan mentioned some of the effects of not looking after our planet, the rising sea levels, which is going to see most of our major cities underwater if that scenario actually happens. And I'm sure we've actually all heard in the news all the other possible consequences of not being sustainable. So I'm not going to sort of dwell too much on those because it can seem overwhelming and too much doom and gloom. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the business benefits that being green and sustainable can offer. Nielsen, global market research company, a couple of years ago did a big survey of consumers around the world and found 73% of them prefer to buy products or are prepared to switch to buying products from companies that they know are being greener and more responsible towards the planet. And I saw a survey just recently where about 59% of people said that they are now going to, this year particularly, actively start applying that. In the B2B world, 43% of small and medium-sized enterprises say that they're now being asked about their sustainability policies and what they're doing to be sustainable by those larger companies higher up the supply chain. The larger companies realise that they're not going to be accused of greenwashing, they've got to push their own sustainability policies right down the supply chain. And now that's coming more to the fore. Most local authorities now have declared a climate emergency and have also put in environmental criteria into their tendering processes. So they are actively looking to buy from companies that are also being sustainable. The government will be, I can't remember exactly when it comes in, but in 1 or 2 years' time, if you're bidding for a contract for over £5 million, again, you will have to have a demonstrable sustainability policy that you are applying, not just something that's on the shelf and gathering dust, but that you are actually making your company more sustainable. Ben & Jerry's, that well-known ice cream company, reckon that their customers are 2.5 times more loyal to them because they know about the responsible, ethical and sustainable actions that the company is taking. Another survey showed that actually people are now really wanting to work for companies that hold similar values to them. We're not anymore leaving our personal values at the door at the reception desk saying, oh, well, we can't behave responsibly because we're at work and we're professional. Now more and more employees are wanting to combine the two. So if you're being sustainable and you're shouting about it and people know what you're doing, you will actually become more of a magnet for job seekers. And that's particularly true for Generation Z and millennials, the younger people, because they are really actively wanting to practice what they preach in all parts of their life. It also gives you great opportunity for publicity. This is a company, a solar power company that I did some PR for. They call My Power. It was all around the abolition of the feed-in tariffs, which was a subsidy that the government used to give to people when they set up a new renewable energy scheme. Got them great coverage on local regional television, lunchtime and tea time news, the local radios, the newspapers and business press as well. Because for the journalists, if you've got a story about sustainability, then it elevates you above the normal business story and makes you almost in the category of charities. Not quite, but almost, but it does give you PR opportunities. And now just more and more companies are applying, particularly the large ones, as I said, applying the sustainability policy, and the financial sector now is really beginning to get behind this. And they can see figures showing that, you know, the financial investment sector is really now starting to look at the impacts that their investments have on ethical, responsible sustainability, you know, community. Basically, what are the negative impacts of their investments, and they're now trying to negate that. And a lot of companies now, I think it's Marks and Spencer's I read about just recently, they've actually negotiated a loan from a financial institution. I think it's one of the big banks, and the interest rate they pay actually goes down the more the company can be seen to be applying their sustainability policy, in particular in relation to their carbon dioxide emissions. So the more they reduce their carbon dioxide emissions and become sustainable, the less interest they pay on their loan. So it's now really beginning to move. The financial sector is really beginning to get behind this. So lots of good business reasons for being sustainable, and also it's a win-win. You know, this is what I try and get across to businesses. You know, it is about making your business more efficient, running in a more streamlined way, using less resources, using less energy. And all this has a really beneficial effect on your bottom line. It means that your bills go down. And here's a quote from the chair of the Association for Conservation of Energy, reckoning that 1/3 of fuel used in buildings is wasted. Energy efficiency, I think, is the really unsung hero about the whole climate and carbon dioxide and greenhouse gas debate. We talk a lot about renewable energy, where our energy comes from, but if we make our buildings energy efficient in the first place, we don't need that to use the energy. And so you can cut energy use by up to about 2/3 by making yourself energy efficient. So it can be a bit bamboozling, you know, where to start. I mean, there are so many different, I mean, as I said earlier, you probably hear it in the news, there are so many different issues around sustainability. I can be like, oh, where do I start? And I know a lot of companies can be put off by this, particularly the smaller ones, when you're trying to do this on top of all your day-to-day stuff. You know, I have every sympathy with you. So my advice is always to tackle perhaps one thing at a time. You know, and for me, the main categories that you could look at are your energy use, and that includes energy efficiency, biodiversity. It's not high up in the status of sustainability, but it should be, because biodiversity means all life on Earth, and it basically creates the environment that we live in. It produces our oxygen, our water, and our raw materials. It produces £761 billion worth of services for the commercial sector in the UK alone. So protecting our wild areas and our biodiversity is really important. Looking at your transport, looking at your waste, looking at your raw materials. So I would sort of perhaps recommend sort of looking at one of those in particular, and just looking at it, delving into it, looking at how you impact it and it impacts you, and then looking what you can do. And then when you feel you've tackled that particular issue as best you can, move on to another one. Otherwise, it's going to seem so overwhelming. What can you do? Alan asked me to give you a few pointers, a few starters for 10. So here are sort of the ones I feel that are easy to do and also can make a big impact. Changing to renewable energy supply, that's probably one of the big impacts that you can have. That makes a big difference right away, and it actually can be really straightforward. And at the moment, because of all the increase in energy prices, we might all be particularly looking and analysing our suppliers and looking for good new deals. So this is quite a good time to look for renewable energy as well, to consider that. And I know too, the big renewable energy companies, Ecotricity and Good Energy, have consistently appeared in Which magazine's top 5 energy companies, both for price, service, and also customer service. So, you know, you don't have to wear a hair shirt in order to be sustainable. A simple thing, switch your search engine to Ecosia. They plant trees, but every search that you do on Ecosia, and I can't remember how many millions of trees now that they've planted around the world, and particularly in developing countries where these trees are particularly needed. And it's so simple, you know. Okay, when I switched from Google, I did used to miss the Google Doodle, and I would occasionally sneak back to Google to have a look at the doodle, but I have to say I don't miss it now at all. I'm not that bothered. Look at your website. There are hosting services which will say that they use renewable energy and that they're carbon neutral. And again, quite an easy thing to do, quite an easy switch, something you can do. Bottom left-hand corner, you can see FSC logo. That's a Forestry Stewardship Council. Look for that logo on things that you buy, particularly paper products. Anything relating to around paper, look for your SSC symbol, because that means that the trees that are used in the paper manufacturing have been grown in a responsible, ethical, sustainable way. Join or volunteer for your local environmental charity. I think there are so many environmental charities around doing some fantastic work. You know, that's the route I've gone through mainly in my 25 years in wildlife conservation, and they don't need huge amounts of money in order to make a big difference on the ground and really get local people inspired and involved with their local environment. So, you know, either join them and just donate to them, or if you've got a bit of time, go out and do some voluntary work with them as well. It's actually fun. It's great fun. And the final one, the pound sign, this is a really important one to me, is about really thinking about how you spend your money. How we spend our money is probably the most important, powerful tool that we have as ordinary people, as consumers. You know, look at your companies that you're buying from, look at their credentials and how they're being sustainable, and just try to buy from, or not buy from, ones that aren't being. Ethical Consumer Magazine, if you're really interested in it, this is a great one. It comes out once every couple of months, and they review companies and products for their ethical and sustainable, and also include things like community as well, and how companies treat their workforce. So it's a really in-depth, across the board guide to how to buy really with a conscience. It's been on the go for about 25 years. So this is the Which equivalent for sustainability and ethical consumerism, I'd say. So if you're really interested and you want to know the right thing to do, it's not expensive either. I think it's about £35 for a year. You know, when you get 6 issues, it's packed full of really helpful information. On a day-to-day basis, I'd recommend Pebble website. This is an online magazine, and they're always putting on articles about sustainable, ethical companies and products, from, as you can see, from fashion to eco travel. You know, it's a really, really great source of information that I really like Pebble myself. They've also got an online community called Ripples, where you can get special offers as well. If you want more actual detailed advice about how to help, if you want something to help your hand, Go Climate Positive is a great company which will help you to calculate what your carbon footprint is, and then really help you to work your way through how to become net zero, which means cutting out all your carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases. It's a monthly subscription, and you become, like this network here, you become a member of it, and there are monthly talks, and you get really loads of great support from the community. So if you're interested in that, just let me know. So the last thing I would say as well is about your communications. That's my speciality, is in really helping you to get your message out to your target audiences and your customers and potential customers about what you're doing. This came in on the 1st of January. The Green Claims Code, it's really quite exciting, I think, because it's intent on getting rid of greenwashing. We know those companies who say, oh, we're being green, and actually they're not, like BP. Really? You think we'd buy that? Green Claims Code being enforced by the Competitions and Markets Authority. It basically says if you can't prove it, don't say it, which can be a bit scary when you're starting out on your sustainability journey, but I'd say that is overcome by the fact you've got to start telling your story right from the start. Take your customers on the journey with you, explain to them what you're doing, be open and honest and transparent. If it doesn't work, tell them, explain why, and say what you're going to do instead. And it actually is helping them to learn as well. So you can really build up some positive conversations. You can ask them for their ideas. People who know a lot about sustainability just really want to share their knowledge, and they can really help you. So look at all the stories you've got to tell about how you're being greener, and look at how you can get those out to your customers and potential customers. And that's definitely where I can help you. So that's it. Bit of a whistle-stop tour. Hope that was fine, Alan. Hope that sort of didn't go on too long.